I am Charlotte, a woman who has learned to dance with the nuances of desire and to defy the conventions of conventional love. My life is spent between the quiet routine of a home I share with Michael, my husband, and the daring freedom of an open relationship. With honey-colored eyes and a smile that holds secrets, I have explored the limits of monogamy, discovering that the boundaries of pleasure blur in the shadows of lust. In society, I am the exemplary wife who shares dinners and laughter with friends, but between the sheets, Michael and I dance to the rhythm of a forbidden symphony. Together, we explore the world of swinger clubs, weaving complicity with other wandering souls in the vast ocean of temptation. Lasciviousness has become our accomplice, and in every glance, I find an accomplice in Michael, who understands that love is not always measured in terms of exclusivity. My dark, wavy hair is a reflection of the duality I hold within me. I am not only the demure lady who shows up at social events, I am also the woman who unleashes her desires in the shadows of secret places. The life Michael and I share becomes a work of art in constant creation, where every brushstroke of passion overlaps the pre-established rules. I am Charlotte, the tightrope walker of love, walking the tightrope between stability and excitement, between commitment and temptation. My world is a canvas where emotions intertwine in a daring dance, defying expectations and unraveling the mysteries of human desire. It was in an evening entangled between dim lights and suggestive murmurs that I met Andrew. We met in a reserved corner of the club, where conversations were intertwined with complicit laughter. Amidst the symphony of voices, his eyes rested on mine with an intensity that went beyond mere physical attraction. Andrew was a man of subtle elegance, with a smile that suggested complicity and a gaze that pierced the layers of superficiality. The conversation flowed between us like a captivating dance, and his words were more than mere innuendo. There was an emotional connection that slipped between double entendre and shared laughter. As the dinner progressed, I discovered that Andrew was not only a skilled lover, but also an unexpected confidant. We talked about dreams, fears, and hidden desires, shedding the masks we usually wear in these scenarios. His presence became an intriguing echo in my soul, resonating with a unique harmony that went beyond mere pleasure-seeking. Between exquisite dishes and sips of wine that intoxicated our senses, Andrew and I shared a connection that transcended the boundaries of the physical. His words caressed my mind, creating a bond that, though fleeting, left an indelible mark. In that instant, I understood that the encounter was not only a fusion of bodies, but a communion of souls thirsty for something deeper. The night ended amid laughter and promises of future encounters, but it was the echo of that emotional connection that resonated in the days that followed. Andrew had become an unexpected chapter in my story, awakening a curiosity that went beyond flesh and skin. Could there be something beyond physical intimacy in this game of forbidden passions? Thus, amidst the tangle of sensations, I found myself at an emotional crossroads that challenged the rules of my shared life with Michael. In the sway of emotions, Andrew stood like a beacon in the darkness, guiding me into uncharted waters where connection transcends physical boundaries. In the weeks that followed, the echo of the connection with Andrew resonated in my mind like a persistent melody. However, the dance of attraction was becoming a more dangerous game, as Michael did not share the same intensity for Andrew's wife. Convincing him to repeat that encounter was becoming a titanic task. Dinners and clubs became arenas where we struggled with the invisible tension that hovered between us. The need to coincide with Andrew became an obsession, and I found myself spinning clever excuses for casual encounters. Every gesture, every word, became a calculated effort to bring me closer to him again. The rules of our open relationship were challenged, as secrecy became an indispensable ally. The moments alone, which were originally forbidden, became furtive episodes in a plot that escaped our control. Passion was mixed with the adrenaline of a dangerous game, challenging the boundaries of established trust. The nights became accomplices of shared secrets, and each encounter with Andrew became a forbidden whisper in the ear of monotony. My desire to explore this special connection became a flame that, though it threatened to set everything on fire in its path, could not be extinguished. Michael, unbeknownst to me, was becoming a supporting actor in this emotional narrative. His reservations toward Andrew's wife stood like walls that hindered the path to shared desire. Yet every excuse, every furtive encounter became another step in the dangerous game she was willing to play. In this labyrinth of forbidden emotions, I was caught between loyalty and longing, entangled in a well-woven web of deceit. How far was I willing to go to explore the depths of this connection with Andrew? Uncertainty and excitement intertwined in an unpredictable dance as the dangerous game continued to unfold, leading me down unsuspected paths. The moments of passion with Andrew were like a symphony of emotions that resonated in the depths of my being. Each encounter was an act in which we plunged into the maelstrom of lust, letting ourselves be carried away by the unbridled desire that burned between us. In those moments, the restraints of morality dissolved, and I found myself bound to him by invisible chains woven with threads of passion. Andrew's caresses were like an art in themselves, exploring every nook and cranny of my skin with a dexterity that took me to new heights of pleasure. His lips traced forbidden paths, and his hands were poets writing verses of ecstasy over my body. Each whisper was a promise that slipped into the air, creating an intimate bond that went beyond the physical. The wildness became a whirlwind in which our souls danced, intertwining in a fiery embrace. I experienced sensations I had never explored before, a symphony of pleasure that awakened feelings that lay dormant within me. Each encounter was like discovering a new chapter in the book of passion, and I found myself captivated by this passionate story. The emotional connection we shared amplified the intensity of each moment, creating a complicity that went beyond the limits of what was permitted. Andrew became my confidant in the art of lust, and I, a fearless explorer of the darkest corners of my desire. Every glance, every moan became the signature of a union that defied convention. As our emotions intertwined, Andrew's need for me became an addictive drug, an antidote to the monotony that threatened to suffocate my daily life. I found myself tethered to him not only by physical passion, but by the promise of an emotional escape that only he could offer. However, this fiery bond was not without consequences. Every stolen moment became a tightrope, and I, balancing on the fine line between loyalty and unbridled desire, plunged deeper into the abyss of temptation, unable to resist Andrew's magnetic pull on me. The weeks following my encounters with Andrew witnessed a growing rift in my relationship with Michael. Arguments were becoming more frequent, and his gaze was clouded with the shadow of a suspicion I could not put into words. What had begun as a shared exploration into the world of swinger exchanges with other couples was crumbling in front of us. Michael, sometime before, had made it clear that he was no longer interested in engaging with Andrew's partner in swinger games. His disinterest was evident, but my connection with Andrew, far from diminishing, was becoming more and more intense. The distance between Michael's expectations and my own desires was becoming an unbridgeable gap. Discussion centered on the palpable change he perceived in me, a transformation that manifested itself in my gestures, in my words, in my white lies to justify my absences. Passion with Andrew had become an overwhelming force, and although Michael didn't fully understand it, he did feel that something had become hopelessly unbalanced. The nights of discussions were mixed with the nights of hiding, where Andrew and I continued to write our own story. Every excuse I made to agree with him was like another brick in the wall that stood between Michael and me. Despite his pleas for understanding, I found myself caught in the web of attraction, unable to break free. Even my secret trip, justified by the need for work, exacerbated the rift. Michael, though he had no concrete proof, sensed the emotional distance growing between us. Every hidden message, every discreet call, deepened the wound that was opening in our bond. The crush on Andrew was becoming a shadow impossible to hide, a flame that threatened to consume everything in its path. At the crossroads between stability and forbidden passion, I was torn, aware of the consequences of my choices, but unable to give up the magnetism that Andrew exerted on my soul. Convinced that leaving Michael and embarking on a new life with Andrew was the path to my happiness, I made the decision to sever the ties we once shared. Although controversy and pain marked the end of our marriage, I felt reborn in Andrew's arms. I had never experienced such intense and genuine happiness. The days passed with laughter, complicity, and a connection that seemed to overcome any obstacle. Andrew and I were planning our future, building dreams that were woven with the promise of a love that, we believed, would last forever. However, life, capricious and unpredictable, had other plans for us. After a few days, when the euphoria of my new life was still fresh, something unexpected happened. The news of my pregnancy shook the foundations of the reality I had just built. The initial joy turned to bewilderment as I realized that I did not know who the father of my child might be. Uncertainty took hold of me, clouding the horizon that once looked clear and promising. Andrew and Michael were becoming two shadows that darkened my thoughts, while doubt swirled in my mind. How to explain to Andrew that this newfound happiness could be threatened by the shadow of uncertain parenthood? The crossroads became more complex as the pregnancy progressed. The initial joy turned into a roller coaster of emotions as I struggled between the responsibility of revealing the truth and the fear of losing the happiness I had so desperately sought. My heart was pounding, not only because of the new being growing inside me, but because of the dilemma that threatened to tear the fabric of my new life apart. In this whirlwind of emotions, I faced the possibility of building an uncertain future, where decisions made in the name of love and passion could take an unexpected toll. The happiness I thought I had achieved was threatened by a truth I was not yet willing to confront, leaving me trapped at a crossroads where the promises of tomorrow teetered on the tightrope of destiny. As the pregnancy progressed, the shadow of uncertainty about paternity became unbearable. The anguish pushed me to make a difficult decision, to take the paternity test that would reveal who the father of my future child was. Hopes and fears clashed in my heart as I awaited the results. The truth, when it was finally revealed, came as a brutal blow. The biological father of my child was Michael, not Andrew, the man with whom I had decided to build my new life. The waiting room of the lab seemed to close in on me, and reality became a deafening echo that echoed in my mind. The news, instead of freeing me from uncertainty, created a new spiral of emotions. My deepest wish was that my child would be the fruit of the love I shared with Andrew, but reality was unrelenting. The connection I so longed for with him was threatened by a truth I found difficult to accept. The weight of guilt and anguish took hold of me. The thought of confronting Michael with this truth terrified me, fearing that our already fractured lives would fall apart even further. In addition, the thought of what my future daughter would think when she discovered the truth haunted me. How could I explain to her that her roots were more complicated than they appeared? The prospect of my own daughter looking down on me, feeling that I had betrayed her before she was born, was unbearable. I was trapped in the maze of my own decisions, and each step seemed to plunge me deeper into the darkness of guilt and remorse. Pregnancy, instead of being a period of joy and anticipation, became a torturous journey through guilt and anxiety. My dreams of a perfect family faded before the reality of an uncomfortable truth. At the crossroads between my choices and the consequences they carried, I was faced with the challenge of building a future where acceptance and forgiveness were possible, even though the road to that destination seemed full of thorns. The truth, once revealed, became a double-edged sword that tore at the threads of the life I had woven. Michael, upon learning of our son's paternity, faced the news with a mixture of grief and resignation. Our relationship, already fractured, was marked by the shadow of betrayal and the emotional scars it left in its wake. Andrew, upon discovering that he would not be the father of my child, was caught up in a storm of emotions. The connection we shared was becoming a more fragile bond than we thought, and although we tried to find a new balance, trust had been irreparably shaken. The birth of my daughter, the fruit of a past love, became the link between two men who had somehow shared my life. As my daughter grew older, the weight of the truth became more apparent, creating a web of complicated and emotional relationships. The fear of her discovering the truth about her origin became a constant shadow that darkened my motherhood. The feeling of guilt, although assumed, did not go away. Impulsive decisions and selfish desires had left indelible scars in my history. The question of whether I had done the right thing persisted, and though I tried to find solace in the present, the shadow of the past cast a flickering light over my life. This is my story, a narrative interwoven with unbridled passions, wrong decisions, and the inevitable consequences of my choices. I am aware that not every chapter has a happy ending, and that a sense of guilt will be my lifelong companion. However, in this labyrinth of love and desire, I also discovered painful lessons about the importance of honesty, communication, and respect in building lasting relationships. Now, with the weight of past decisions on my shoulders, I try to learn from my mistakes and find redemption in the present. My story, though tumultuous, remains a reminder that every choice, no matter how small it may seem, can weave the fabric of our destiny. And as I navigate the turbulent waters of life, I am determined to find peace and redemption, even if it is too late to change the chapters written in the book of my story. And so my story concludes, a tale marked by the unexpected twists and turns of passion and the consequences of difficult decisions. Now, before I say goodbye, I wonder, what would you have done in my situation? Would you face the truth even if it was painful, or would you seek to maintain the illusion of happiness at any cost? Your perspective could offer a new light to this narrative, a fresh look that sheds light on the complexities of human relationships and the decisions that lead us down unexplored paths. I appreciate your attention and invite you to share your thoughts in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed this story and would like to see more content of this style, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Your support drives the creation of fascinating stories and deep reflections. Until the next adventure.
I have always believed that love is one of the most enigmatic and complex experiences of human life. As I reflect on this, I think of you, of me, of all of us who venture into experiencing relationships. Have you ever stopped to think about the nature of love? How does it intertwine and sometimes clash with the ideals of monogamy? From a young age, I absorbed conventional notions of love and relationships. The idea of finding that one person, the better half that complements and completes your existence. Society teaches us to aspire to monogamy as an ideal, a promise of emotional and physical exclusivity. But is this view of love and loyalty truly universal, or simply a cultural norm that we have accepted without question? As I walk the path of my own love life, I have begun to question all of this. In my relationship, I have experienced the warmth of love, the security of commitment, but also the whisper of doubt, the curiosity of the unexplored. Have you ever felt like this? Have you ever loved someone deeply but at the same time felt attracted to a new possibility, a different spark with another person? This concern leads me to reflect on monogamy. Is it really the only right way to love and live a relationship? In such a diverse world, can we really fit all our desires into a single relational mold? The reality is that love can be as varied as the people who experience it. In some cultures, monogamy is less of a rule and more of one option among many. In others, fidelity is the cornerstone of relationships. But what really intrigues me is how we navigate these waters in our personal lives. So I ask you, what do you think about all this? How do you define love and monogamy in your own life? The story I am about to tell is a reflection of these questions. But before we delve into it, I want to know how these reflections resonate with you. My name is Sophia, and this is the story of how my life took an unexpected turn, a path that led me to question everything I thought I knew about love, monogamy, and my own identity. It all started when, looking for an escape from routine and a way to explore my creativity, I enrolled in theater classes. I was eager to immerse myself in something new, something that would shake off the dust of the same days, one after the other. What I didn't expect was how this decision would change my perspective on life and love. The theater became my sanctuary, a place where I could be another person, live other lives. But it wasn't just the fictional characters that taught me, it was the women I met there, women of all ages, backgrounds, and experiences, who really opened my eyes. Among them was Lena, a free and untethered woman, who lived her love life without restrictions or apologies. His vision of love was fluid, changing like the wind. There was something about the way she spoke about her experiences, without fear or shame, that captivated me. Then there was Sophia, married like me, but in an open relationship. Listening to her talk about the trust and communication her lifestyle required was fascinating. These conversations were a breath of fresh air for me. It made me wonder, what else was out there? What other ways of loving and living were possible? As the weeks went by, I found myself more immersed in these discussions, absorbing every story, every confession, every different perspective. At home, my life continued its normal course. Daniel, my husband, was still the loving and attentive man he had always been. But every time I returned from my classes, I felt that I brought with me a different vision, many possibilities, and unanswered questions. These women, with their stories and their lives, were like windows to unknown landscapes. They showed me that love was not a fixed entity, but a spectrum of colors, shades, and shapes. I began to realize that I had been living in a bubble of sorts, a comfortable but limiting bubble. Every night after class, I went to bed thinking about everything I had heard. I reflected on my own life, my own desires, and how, deep down, I had always felt that something was missing. But was it fair to question my entire life because of these new ideas and feelings? Was this just a phase, a passing whim, or something deeper, a truth about myself that I had ignored for years? January brought with it not only a new year, but also a new project in my theater classes, preparing a performance for the summer. This project became the center of my world, an exciting challenge that channeled all my energy and creativity. What I didn't know at the time was how this play would intertwine with my personal life, transforming it in ways I could never have imagined. The play's script was a story of love and disagreement, a plot that resonated with me more than I dared to admit. My role, that of a woman caught between duty and desire, seemed a reflection of my own internal concerns. I immersed myself in the character, finding in her an echo of my own doubts and dreams. It was then that a new actor joined our group, a man who would bring an unexpected turn to my life. His name was Oliver, and from the first moment, his presence on stage was imposing. Not only was he a talented actor, but there was something about his manner, a sparkle in his eyes, an intensity in his voice, that attracted me inexplicably. Oliver and I were chosen to play the lovers in the play, a decision that initially excited me because of the acting opportunities it offered. However, as rehearsals progressed and our interactions on stage became more intense, I began to feel something that went beyond the performance. Our scenes together were electric, full of palpable tension that wasn't always limited to the script. Rehearsals forced us to explore deep emotions, look each other in the eyes, and connect in ways that left me feeling vulnerable and excited. Offstage, Oliver was reserved, but friendly and attentive. Our conversations usually revolved around the play, but little by little we began to share details of our lives, laughter, and glances that lasted longer than usual. There was an undeniable chemistry between us, an attraction that grew with each meeting, each rehearsal. Meanwhile, my life at home continued its normal course. Daniel, oblivious to the changes that were occurring inside me, continued to be my usual companion. But every time I came back from rehearsals, I felt different, like I was living in two parallel worlds. The play was becoming more than just a theater project for me. It was a mirror of my own life, an artistic representation of the emotions and dilemmas that were beginning to surface in my heart. What started as a role in a summer performance was taking the shape of a true story, a story that was about to change my life forever. As the months passed, the theater and my colleagues became the central axis of my existence. The work required a commitment and dedication that absorbed most of my time and energy. Every rehearsal, every meeting with the group, felt like immersing yourself in a world apart, a universe where creativity and personal expression were the only thing that mattered. Rehearsal sessions often extended beyond what was scheduled, and what began on stage ended in dinners and late-night gatherings. These meetings became an essential part of my life. We stayed talking until dawn, sharing experiences, laughter, and reflections on life and art. What caught my attention the most was the diversity of personalities and lifestyles within the group. Each of my companions had a unique story, a way of living and loving that challenged my own conceptions. The intimate relationships between them, treated naturally and openly, were something he had never experienced. This liberal, uninhibited attitude towards relationships was fascinating. There were couples in open relationships, singles exploring multiple connections, friendships that transcended convention. All of this was accepted and normalized with an ease that surprised me and, at the same time, deeply attracted me. In the midst of all this, my relationship with Oliver was developing in a subtle but intense way. Our chemistry on stage began to transfer to real life. The shared looks, the conversations at the end of the night, everything seemed to carry a deeper meaning. It was as if we were dancing around a mutual attraction, not daring to take the final step. I found myself divided between two worlds. On the one hand, there was my life with Daniel, stable and secure, but increasingly distant from the intensity and passion I experienced in the theater. On the other, there was this new universe full of possibilities, where I felt like I could be a more authentic version of myself. The closeness with Oliver and the group dynamic made me constantly question my own limits and desires. I began to wonder if what I was feeling was simply the result of being immersed in this environment or if it actually reflected a part of me that had been hidden for years. Every night when I returned home, I felt like I was returning from a trip to a foreign country, a place where the rules and regulations were completely different. And in the solitude of my room, I was beginning to wonder what all this meant for my future, for my marriage to Daniel, and for the person I really wanted to be. As the date of the theatrical performance approached, I felt how this first half of the year was marking a before and after in my life. Every day, every experience, every interaction in the theater was shaping a new way of seeing the world, a perspective I had never contemplated before. My theater companions, including Oliver, moved with a freedom and openness in their relationships that challenged my most ingrained conceptions. Invitations to participate in multiple relationships and group meetings were frequent, and although each proposal aroused in me a mixture of interest and excitement, I always chose to decline. Despite feeling more and more attracted to that freedom of expression and desire, I still didn't feel ready to take that step. However, I could not deny that my perception of these forms of relationships was changing. What at first seemed strange and foreign to me was beginning to look more natural and normal. Watching the way my peers interacted, untethered, unjudged, with such pure honesty and transparency, was both disconcerting and eye-opening. In this environment, my relationship with Oliver continued to evolve. Although we had not crossed any physical lines, the emotional connection and tension between us grew day by day. The long conversations, the meaningful glances, everything seemed to lead us towards something inevitable. The nights became a sea of thoughts and questions. The Sophia who left home every day to go to the theater was no longer the same one who returned. I was in the process of transformation, still not knowing where this journey would take me. For this reason, I couldn't help but touch myself in my free time, imagining myself participating in those relationships between my classmates, and especially with Oliver. Was I going out of my mind? Was it possible to have changed so much in less than 6 months? The days before the theater performance were an accumulation of intense emotions. Nerves, excitement, and motivation intermingled, creating an electric atmosphere both on and off stage. Everything was lived with an intensity that seemed to magnify each moment, each interaction. The conversations with my classmates, especially with Oliver, were loaded with a deeper meaning. On stage, our scenes together reached levels of passion and emotion that bordered on reality. Outside of it, nights out with the group were wild experiences, an exploration of freedom and expression that would have previously seemed unimaginable to me. In the midst of all this, I felt myself transforming. The Sophia from before, more reserved and contained, was giving way to someone bolder, more alive. I surprised myself by enjoying this new facet, this feeling of being wilder. It was like I was discovering parts of me that had been hidden or repressed for years. Despite this growing sense of liberation and discovery, I still maintained certain limits. The most daring proposals from Oliver and other colleagues, although tempting, were rejected. There was a part of me that still clung to the structure and commitments of my previous life, a thread of connection to the Sophia I had been. Every encounter with Oliver was a balancing act between attraction and reserve. Our interactions were filled with unexpressed desire, a dance between what was said and what was left unsaid. The tension between us grew day by day, fueled by the proximity of the premiere and the intensity of our roles in the play. The night before the performance, everything reached a fever pitch. The last general test was an explosion of energy and excitement. Afterwards, the group decided to celebrate with a night out, a last chance to release tension before the big day. The night was a mix of euphoria, laughter, dancing, and a sense of unity among all of us. In the middle of the bustle, I found myself alone with Oliver. Their closeness was overwhelming, and at that moment, the line between reality and acting seemed more blurred than ever. Yet despite the intensity of the moment, a part of me continued to resist, clinging to what I knew was safe and known. I returned home that night feeling alive, confused and expectant. The Sophia she saw in the mirror was a mix of the woman she had been and the one she was emerging. The next day's theater performance would not only be a display of our work and passion, but also the scene of a personal decision that I felt was inexorably approaching. The day of the theater performance arrived, and with it, a mixture of nervousness and excitement. From the moment the curtain rose to the last applause, everything was a torrent of energy and passion. Every scene flowed perfectly, every dialogue, every movement on stage felt electrifying. The chemistry between Oliver and I, so intense during rehearsals, transformed into pure magic under the lights of the theater. At the end of the play, the audience gave us a standing ovation. The hugs and congratulations among the cast were sincere and effusive. We were elated, fascinated by what we had achieved together. In that moment, all the months of hard work, the long nights of rehearsal, and the countless emotions invested in the project felt completely justified. Among the audience was Daniel, my husband. He had come to support me, his face full of pride and admiration. Seeing him there, applauding enthusiastically, filled me with a mixture of love and guilt. He was part of my life, a fundamental pillar of my existence, and yet, at that moment, I felt that there was a part of me that he didn't know, a part that had emerged in these last few months. After the performance, as the theater emptied and the spectators dispersed, Daniel approached me. His smile was wide, his eyes shining with pride. He hugged me tightly, congratulating me on my performance. It was a warm moment, full of love and mutual appreciation. Then came the time when Daniel met Oliver. I introduced him as my scene partner, trying to keep my voice steady and my face calm. Oliver, always the perfect gentleman, shook Daniel's hand with a kind smile and words of courtesy. I watched their interaction, feeling my heart beat faster. It was a crossing of worlds that I had never imagined would happen. At that moment, as I watched Daniel talk with Oliver, I felt a wave of conflicting emotions. On the one hand, there was the affection and history shared with Daniel, the life we had built together. On the other, the inexplicable attraction and connection with Oliver, something that had grown in the confines of a totally different world. The situation was surreal. Daniel, without knowing anything, continued talking animatedly. Oliver, for his part, seemed perfectly comfortable in the situation, although our gazes occasionally crossed, loaded with a meaning that only we understood. This encounter, although brief, left a lasting impression on me. It made me realize how complicated and intertwined my life had become. The night ended with celebrations and more congratulations, but inside, the questions and doubts continued to grow. As that magical night concludes, we prepare to celebrate the end of a unique and transformative half-year with dinner next week. This event is not only a closing of our work, but also a threshold towards crucial personal decisions. I find myself at a crossroads, full of doubts and questions. The connection with Oliver is undeniable, but so is my commitment to Daniel. Dinner could be the setting for a new chapter in my life, or simply the end of an intense theatrical experience. The possibility of something happening with Oliver is a question that consumes me. I am here, sharing my story with you, searching your thoughts for guidance or reflection. What do you think I should do? Should I explore what I feel for Oliver, letting myself be carried away by the passion of the moment, or should I hold on to the life I've built with Daniel? What would you do in my place? Your opinion is valuable to me in this time of uncertainty. Please leave me your advice in the comments, and if you liked it or want to know how it continues, subscribe to the channel and we will notify you when we upload the end of the story.